pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
Okay, fire evacuation announcement. The two best exits to get out of here in case of a fire would be behind the audience, and then get as far away from the building as you can, or to my left, and then take a left down the stairs and out to the back, and again, get as far away as you can as possible. Okay, could we have roll call, please?
Ken Helinski.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
Linda DeGray is here. John Petronella is absent. Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Frank Alimo.
Here.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Joe Muley.
Here.
Rob Anderson.
Here.
Walter Cazell.
Here.
And Laura Anderson is absent. Okay.
Okay, next item of business is the approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll be abstaining.
Okay.
Oh.
Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
You made the motion?
Second.
Okay, I missed that somehow.
And Laura is here now.
Okay. Before we proceed, I'm going to appoint Laura Ray Anderson as our regular member tonight, since it is her month, the month of June. Okay, any discussion on the minutes, additions, subtractions? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? And one abstention. Frank was abstained.
Abstention.
Okay. Town attorney report, I don't see any one of those. Is there a zoning enforcement officer's report tonight? Okay. Public participation. At this time, I would like to invite the audience to come forward and speak to the commission about matters which are not on tonight's agenda. At this time, I would like to ask anyone from the audience to come forward to speak about things that are not on the agenda. And for a third time, I'd like to ask anyone to come forward if they would wish to speak on matters not on tonight's agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on. Bond releases, there are none, I believe. There are no continued public hearings. New public hearing, Madam Second Vice Chair tonight, subbing.
Okay. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at the regular meeting on Wednesday, June 25th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Connecticut, concerning the following application, PH 3149ZA, application for text amendment to Section 6.20, use requirements to allow motor vehicle repair garages and body shops in the I-1 zone under specific conditions, Amazon.com Services, LLC, owner applicant, map 94, lot 65, I-1 zone.
Okay, the public hearing is hereby open. We have the presenter here to come up and present. Just please identify by your name and address, please.
That's on, yes?
Yep.
You hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, Valerie Farrow, President of Good Earth Advisors, representing the applicant, Avon, Connecticut. Just wanted to spend a couple minutes providing some context on how we got here tonight. As you know, I represent the applicant, and there's been discussion of moving their business model into keeping things tight operationally on a particular site. In this case, we have this industrial zone we're discussing. I understand this is a text amendment, so we're not really discussing site details tonight. That's for later on if you do so approve the text amendment. But in the discussion of this industrial zone, the idea of maintaining some of their vans came up. They approached me. I thought, okay, that makes sense. Looked at the zoning regs, and I was kind of stunned because I saw that it was allowed in more restrictive zones, like business, and also, here in other industrial zones, but it seems like the I-2 was the only thing that, was excluded from that. So I went to Lori first, wanted to make sure I was reading things correctly, and went through the zones again, and I found, and I think she concurred, that there's, the business general, the BG, allows motor vehicle repair by special permit. The business regional shopping, BR, also allows vehicle repair by special permit. And I think you understand those business zones are probably larger retail, multiple bay, big operations. But be that as it may, it's called motor vehicle repair. And then in the industrial table, we found that the I-2 zone allowed not just motor vehicle repair garages, but also added body shops. I was like, okay, that's fine, but nothing in the I-1 zone. So after approaching Lori, I believe she had an informal discussion with you at some point a few months ago. I actually joined virtually and took copious notes and tried to figure out, okay, I understand. I heard lots of folks talking about, geez, we don't want vehicles being shipped from other places. It's not supposed to be, an actual vehicle maintenance like a truck depot. I think you've all seen these truck depots mostly on interstates where trucks are coming in, they're scheduled for major maintenance, and that's where they go, and then they get back on the road. So I understood your concerns and tried to craft some language. Then I was also, again, because of planning staff, brought up some concerns about EV, because we know that this particular facility we'd be looking at will probably be maintaining EV vehicles. And so I started crafting some language. And after making several cuts, I think I made it as restrictive as I could to eliminate any kind of concerns that you folks brought up. And that's when I made application. So you'll note that we specifically said in the notes to use in the table, and I included those in red if they came through in red, but if it's not, it's number 11. In the I-1 zone, motor vehicle repair restricted to accessory uses. Okay, so it can't be the main facility. That's restriction number 1. It's got to be an accessory use. And it's for fleet maintenance only. In other words, they can't go around looking for other vehicles to do. It's got to be something they do. And removal, repair, or storage of EV batteries prohibited. None of that. And by the way, I believe that there needs to be technicians. There's a specialized maintenance associated with that. And so I think that's just another provision that I don't think anybody just switches out EV batteries. It's got to be a specialized technician. And then body work is prohibited, and outdoor storage is prohibited. Because I've been to, a number of these shops, and you'll see tires, you'll see barrels, you'll see all sorts of stuff, and we wanted to prohibit that. I also, while I was crafting this language, I think someone, I apologize, I don't remember who brought it up, but they're like, geez, what are other towns doing? So I used the planner's listserv. Staff and most planners are on that. And I sent out a request. This is what I'm doing. I'm looking for some feedback. And I got some great feedback. There's many towns that just, motor vehicles allowed in industrial. Some as use, some by special permit, just depends. But I think I got 9 or 10 responses. And there was a couple that were more restrictive based on what was going on and how large the facility is. But a number of them brought up this fleet maintenance and trying to restrict that facility for something that the primary use was doing. And so that evolved into what's before you this evening.
Okay, thank you. Does staff have any comments?
Yes. I did want to let you know that on June 17th, we did receive a positive referral from CROG, which is why this was delayed 30 days. And just basically, this really could be beneficial to a lot of warehouse distribution centers being able to maintain, their trucks, their fleet on site rather than sending it off site. That increases traffic, it increases gas consumption. So economically, it should be very viable for them. And it meets the POCD, guidelines encouraging economic development. That's about it.
Okay. Do any of the commission members have some comments or questions? Linda?
Yes, because I didn't understand this whole thing, so, how I'm nosy. And I went online, I went to the DOT, and actually the state does allow fleet maintenance. And it's pretty much spelled out, and I do have some corrections I'd like to make to the verbiage, where it says motor vehicle repair garage and body shop. I think it should just, to stay within the state, general repair, motor vehicle general repair. And that's just because of the state language. And I'm sure we've got two people down that end that can verify that. And then being very clear, body work and third-party work is prohibited because it is illegal for a third party to come in. You can't even fix your own car in this facility. So I did do my homework. So I'm thinking that if we include this, I wrote it up, kind of stole it from the state. Body work and third-party work is prohibited, and in parentheses, you cannot legally serve or repair vehicles that belong to other companies, employees, or the public. I'm just trying to protect the town and having our CEO not running out there because, somebody decides, because, we've had situations where somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm going to open ABC, and then they do A through Z, which they never got permission for. So I'm just concerned so that we can really be clear. So if somebody comes in, they say, well, and then we can go, no, it's here. It's here. See, it's right in our regulations. So.
Is that what I see written out?
Yeah, I got it written out. See, I got it written out.
You could actually make that a
as a
condition. We
condition.
could make that a condition.
Right, and if that's okay with the applicant, I think that would be an important piece to protect you. And,
Absolutely.
I mean,
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went on there too, and I wanted to drop the body shop, but I didn't want to mess with that table because it said it in other zones, and I thought, am I getting myself into trouble? I was like, so I kept that in there, but
Right.
I totally agree there. I think it's a great
I mean,
idea. Yeah.
when you poke around enough,
No.
you have enough time to
Yes,
poke.
I know, especially in
That was-
DOT.
That was it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr.
Yeah, Frank.
The staff, didn't we do something similar to this? Maybe it was a different zone on Moody Road for the big trucking company across the street from them. We allowed a couple of years ago.
That was Martin Brower. They're
Brower.
under
Martin
construct.
Brower,
Actually,
yeah.
they're finishing up right now.
Yeah,
They
that's-
were actually grandfathered.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
But they
that
came
was a
before us, didn't
grandfather- Yeah, they did, but it was a grandfathered use.
Because it was for the same thing. It was for repairing their vehicles, right? Maintenance?
That is
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
So it's the same zone, right?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
But it was
for-
grandfathered.
There was evidence that they were grandfathered.
So
for the use.
is there anything that's helpful in that approval and that process that we can use for this, seeing that we already have one not too far from you? I mean, just throwing it out there to be helpful with that. That was approved. Is there, just throwing it out there.
All right. I'm not thinking of anything offhand, but
Okay.
maybe staff has something.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Anyone else? Rob?
I know this is a text amendment, so it doesn't, so speaking about Amazon vehicles isn't really part of what we're talking about. However, a large number of Amazon delivery vehicles are not owned by Amazon. I think there, a lot of them are contractors. Do you
Yeah,
know?
they can't perform maintenance. They're not doing those.
Okay, so all of the vehicles that Amazon is going to be using is owned by Amazon.
That's why we said fleet maintenance, because fleet maintenance are owned, corporate owned. But first of all, the trucks aren't owned. And a lot of the deliveries from, they have a name for the folks that are private contractors that come to use the vehicles. Those are not allowed either. It has to be an Amazon-owned vehicle.
The only other thing I might suggest is limiting it to light-duty trucks and automobiles and light-duty trucks only. No medium and heavy-duty trucks.
Or you could do by class, by commercial class. I'm thinking back to my research.
Well, since this is a generic text amendment for all industrial uses, I mean, it might come in handy for for not doing the large semis, but that is what Martin Brower is doing. That's exactly what Martin Brower is doing.
Right, but you said they're already grandfathered in, so that wouldn't be part of what we're talking
Right,
about.
I'm just trying, just for clarification.
Right.
Yeah.
I just get nervous with the other businesses in the area that may want to do the same thing with the heavy duty trucks and semis, just because of the space, the noise, the just the volume of everything. Most of the places that we're talking about are not super convenient for a lot of traffic like that, but I think it might not be a bad idea to just talk about limiting it to smaller vehicles and avoiding the semis.
Mr. Chair?
I think Chris was.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify what Commissioner Gray had brought up. So I think what I'm getting from you is just shore up the language. I think so just
Yes.
follow the same intent we have here, shore up the language.
That's
But if we, I think your first part was about renaming the use.
because that's
To
the
bring that
way
in
it's in
Right.
the use table
Yeah.
with the state Connecticut DOT.
Right.
It's called general repair, motor vehicle general repair. They don't, and I'm afraid
Mm-hmm.
that if somebody, layperson, reads garage and body shop, they get the wrong idea that they can have both because they may not read the whole thing. But if we make it as part of the language that a repair is just a repair, body shop and third-party work is prohibited, then we take the temptation of body shop work
For this zone.
right
For
for
the
that
zone,
zone.
yes.
So,
That's
so
all.
if we do that, I wonder if it would be a wiser idea to split it into a separate use, because if we remove body shop, then we would be removing the I-2 use of a body shop. So that's more of like a logistic
But this
issue.
is for fleet, period, not like a general
Right.
repair.
But body shops are allowed in the I-2 zone.
Yes.
But
So therefore, we may just want to add it as a separate line item.
And then general repair is just a verbiage that the state uses for both.
Yeah, we could-
It's either and.
Wait, so general repair includes body shops or it doesn't?
It's
Oh,
an
it does?
and/or. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, I thought we were restricting
Oh, boy.
bodies.
right, but we're making this very restrictive for fleet maintenance.
Right. But yeah. But they're just adding the use under the I-1. It's an existing use.
Right.
They're just adding it to the I-1 zone. So I just want to make sure that we're not removing an existing use and unintentionally impacting another,
Yeah.
the I2
General
zone.
repair includes both.
If I may, because it sounds like there's a little bit of concern over potentially removing a use from the I2 zone. I just want to highlight that in the proposed text amendment with the footnote 11 specifically states in the I1 zone.
Right.
So if you wanted to make the modification, we could put the modification in the footnote, so that way that stays specific to the I1 zone and it doesn't impact any of the potential uses within the I2 zone.
But Commissioner DeGray is suggesting we rename the use.
Just to be consistent with the Connecticut DOT, that's all.
Because so the proposed language already excludes body work. So I think the current language is fine. But if we were to change the name of the use, that potentially may remove body shops.
Yeah, I mean, I think removing body shops from this is appropriate given our discussion, but per your point, depending upon what you're talking about, body work can or cannot be repair work, probably, depending upon what you are discussing. If I'm making my car prettier, that is not repair work. If I am if someone ran into my car and my door is dented, that is repair work. You know, so like those are different things. So
Sure. Joe, you had something?
Yeah, in reference to the tractor trailer limitation, I mean, most businesses that I was around for 40-plus years in South Windsor all rely on tractor trailers for deliveries with their names on them. And when they break in their yard, it would be silly to restrict them from not fixing it at their facility and tell them they gotta have it towed somewhere else to have it fixed. I mean, it's kind of beats it to death and with all that. I don't think we should put that restriction on it. If it's a registered fleet vehicle, whether it be a car or a tractor trailer, they should be able to fix it on site if they have the facilities, is my point.
Okay, Frank?
Yeah, dovetailing off what he was saying, and I hear what Rob's saying. So they're going to remove the tractor from the trailer. At that point, the tractor is probably smaller than some of the vans in length, not height. So I'm not sure I'm following the reason. And it's been precedent that when we approve items here, for example, we approve something, we don't tell the person when they have to open, how long they can be open. We don't kind of do restrictive things like that, if I remember correctly. We don't go there. So I hear you, Rob, but the two things is the tractor is going to be smaller, and I don't think we restrict people like from hours of operation. It kind of sounds like it's restricting an approval. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, Terrence.
I'd like to really agree with the two gentlemen on my right. If we're going to approve an accessory use, and with that accessory use, we're trying to limit it to a partial accessory use. If you had some other outfit coming in that just had tractors backing the trailers in and moving out, and the tractors were part of their job, if they had a garage for accessory use, they could take care of the tractors there. And I'm not sure about the language change. I don't have any problem with it, but I'm not sure about it because what we're saying is we want to make sure it works with the DOT language. What do all our regulations have to work with or sound the same as some other outfit? I don't know, just a question.
Yeah, okay. Well,
That's
that's something
all.
that's something we can talk about. Okay, anyone else for comments here? Okay, I'm gonna, at this time, I'm gonna.
Sorry, Ken.
I was just,
Go ahead, you had one?
I just one comment on that, and then I have one question. I honestly, I just think it's an unneeded word. In addition to it, I like when things mirror what the state has to say, but that's not even my main issue. I just think we don't need to say it, given that body work is prohibited. So I just think it doesn't need to be there, and I like less words. Not that, most people would think that, given how much I talk. The only other question I have is, I know prohibiting EV batteries, thank you, really appreciate that. But you said you have some EV vehicles in the fleet you might store here. I just wanted to get a sense, do you know-ish, what percentage and how often they service them right now?
well, I'm not sure about how they service them right now, but their goal in general is to go to a full EV fleet across the nation.
Okay, cool.
And so we thought they might be 50-50 at first. I can't remember what the site plan had said, but, they would like to, obviously,
Get there 100%.
incorporate that into as much as possible. And we have EV stations that you folks approved. Quite a robust system there. And again, that is very telling. And again, trying to keep things within the text amendment, not the site plan. That is done elsewhere.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And generally
Yeah.
speaking, things have been going well with EVs, to your knowledge.
Yes.
Perfect.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Cool.
yes.
Just wanted to get a little sense.
Yep.
All right.
And they're quite proud of what they've been trying to do nationally, and they're thinking, we just need to do this.
Yeah.
It helps noise tremendously.
I've seen them out and about, and they are
And
quieter.
you don't hear
so-
them. I mean, it's like, wait a minute, is there somebody you might, yeah. So the other thing I wanted to add is that, when it does come, if you do approve this and it comes time for, a site plan or a site plan modification, in this case, that's when you can condition, and you have every right to ask, well, are you doing trucks? Or, we don't want trucks, or we do want trucks, or, whatever it is, the applicant, it could be some other location, they will know specifically what their operations are, and, as would I. And I think that's really where you should split the hairs and make sure that, you're comfortable with that specific applicant, including my applicant, is going to do, and frame it in that. And if you have concerns, you condition it.
Yeah, the reason I ask, which is not for today's conversation, is
Yeah.
just when we set up sites like this for storage of EV vehicles, which
Yeah.
is, good we're not putting batteries there.
Yes.
Sometimes we end up setting it up differently for fire hazard potential.
Yes, oh, we
Just
know.
because they're different,
Yes.
So anyway, that's all I was
It was
asking
the
for.
very first question when we did our ART.
Yeah.
Fire Marshal Shaker Pines, they said, we have to talk about this.
Yeah.
And we're like, no
Yeah.
worries, this is what we're doing.
Got it.
And it was quite, the discussion. So it's been on our minds for quite some time.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, I do have a comment on the state language versus the language we have. It seems to me that we have language in our chart that say motor vehicle repair garages and body shops. Okay, so we already have that. That's been a standard we've been working to for a
Just a
long time.
suggestion.
And so I'm not so sure we need to fool around with that and change it. I think we could just leave it. We already got it restricted by the motion, which says that body work is prohibited. So I think that's taken care of. So I don't think it's really necessary to go to a general repair type of wording.
I will tell you that if in another zone, or in this zone, if another, proponent wanted to do body repair, when it came time to pull that building permit, they need to list all of the chemicals. There's all this, the spray hoods. It's quite an involved operation. You don't just go out and get quick approval. So any municipality has multiple areas where an applicant like that must comply, and not just to appear at planning and zoning, but, continuously. There's air quality. There's a whole host of things when you start getting into even just fixing a dent and doing some aesthetics. I mean, if you're spraying and doing what have you, that's an involved process, which again would be a foremost discussion during site planning.
Okay. All right, at this time, I'd like to open the meeting for public comment. So anyone who has anything to say about this particular item, for or against, you're welcome to come up now at this time. Okay, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Right, Lori Parker, 105 Cottage Road.
Okay.
I only have one quick thought about it. I-1 repair shops in wetlands areas, just concern about any repair fluid or chemical runoff for these I-1 areas that are in wetlands. So just making sure any fluid runoff is mitigated, and that's all.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Lori?
Just in response to Lori's question, should something be proposed close to a wetland, it would need a wetlands permit. So, but if it's far enough away outside of the regulated area, they would not.
But there are still regulations that they have to comply with if they're
Yeah.
handling
I mean, they're
oil
gonna need a
changes
state
and things
permit
like that. They
regardless,
still
right?
have to follow the rules about disposal of the oil and fluids and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. Wetlands just adds another layer to that, another board of review for that. Okay. Anybody have anything? Chris?
Yeah, as far going back to the naming of the I guess two things. One, I am generally in support of the gentleman over here who had brought up about allowing fleet maintenance of tractor trailers, semis. That would bring Martin Brower into full compliance, not a non-conformity use. So that's a positive effect if we were to leave the language as is and not exclude heavy-duty vehicles. I'm generally in favor of that, so basically leaving the language as is or going with Commissioner DeGray's language. And as far as the renaming of the use, for what it's worth, I did double check in the business section. It's called motor vehicle repair garages. So for what it's worth, if we leave the language as is, it's consistent with our own regulations. So I guess that's something else for us to consider. We could have one section that better matches state language, but then it mismatches our language in another chapter. Or what I would say is kind of just leave it for now as far as this text amendment goes. And then as we're doing our regulations, maybe if we want to update the verbiage for both of them, I'd be in support of that. Might be a cleaner way to do it.
It's just a suggestion.
Okay.
So,
All right, anybody else? Okay, so can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Second.
Wait a minute, Lori.
do we want to hear from the CEO?
So I was just asking Rick if he knew of whether we required hours of operation. And you could do that with a special use permit, but this is a site plan approval. At least that's what the proposal is, and as it is the same for the I-2 zone. But we're wondering if maybe you want to set some hours of operation for this use.
I think I'm confused. I thought this was just a text change and not a site plan.
This application is a text amendment to create a use that is
Right.
permitted in the use table, but the proposal is that it would be a site plan as it is for the IP zone,
Okay.
or I-2 zone.
All right, I was just a little confused.
I get it.
You
I get that all the
confused me.
time.
All right, thank you.
So I don't know if you want to, I mean, we don't set it for the uses in what was it, where is it? I2, it was I2, not IP. So that's just site plan, and I don't believe that we have hours of operation for that.
Okay, Frank?
I just repeat what I said before. I'm not for restricting hours of operation, but they may be a 24-hour operation. There are 3 shifts going. I think we could put a burden on them and back up their work if they can't work overnight. And they're not really in an area where people are going to hear them. They're out in the field out there. They've made the building smaller. I mean, the building is, what, a quarter of the size of what we approved initially?
I think so, yeah. It's
I mean, the
it's
building
much
is
smaller,
much,
yeah.
much smaller, but the footprint's the same.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's something for the footprint. I didn't want to mention the footprint because that's for the review later, but there's a lot of room out there.
Okay,
And we don't want to, you know,
there is.
back them up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Walter?
So whoever is going to do the repair, they're probably going to do it inside anyway. They're not going to do it outside, so,
I wouldn't think so.
yeah. So I don't need any restriction because it's going to be inside. You close the door and you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
And all the work would be proposed to be inside.
Does the CEO have any comments?
No, well, there's 2 things. First, there's the, that we were discussing, there's the fence that's the sound barrier around the property that is going to cut down on the noise, number 1. And then all interior work done inside is going to reduce the noise levels of anything that's going on mechanically. So there's 2, the only thing we would be able to enforce basically would be the noise level. And if you have the sound wall plus interior work being done, it's going to cut down on both, and there shouldn't be a problem doing it as is.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. When you say sound level, you're just not talking about outside, you're talking about inside, right? Not trucks moving or,
Right. For instance, if you're changing tires outside
Gonna
where-
be an air-
with
an air
an
gun.
air jack or something of
Right.
that sort, you're going to create a noise,
Right.
but they have a sound
Yep.
wall up. Plus, if they're doing all the work inside, it cuts down on the noise
yeah,
being emitted.
I just
So-
wanted to be clear, because I think the loudest thing we're going to have is air sockets and sawzalls, and, I mean, I don't think anything much louder than that's going to happen, but I remember the sound barrier, you know, on the initial application, too, so that's still there, even though the building's cut down the size, right? The sound barrier, has that been made smaller as well, the sound barrier now, or is that?
It has not.
It has not. Okay, so they have plenty of room then. Yeah, they have a ton of room.
Also, I didn't know.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Okay. Yes, Rob?
Just real quick, there's nothing that says they have to work on them inside. They can't have outdoor storage, but there's nothing that says that they can't work outside. And if you've ever heard an air chisel or an air hammer, those are loud. So there could be noise concerns.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Frank?
I think we're starting to get a little bit away from the text amendment stuff.
Thank you.
We're going to have another bite at this apple on the application. We can address all that and more, and a lot more when they come back, so
Well,
this is for
they're-
text amendment.
They're only coming back for a site plan.
Right.
It's not a special use permit, so.
And when we submit, we will have the usual narrative.
You're hearing some of the stuff already, so.
Yes, we're
right.
explaining everything. I can already tell you, we are not working outside. And by the way, this is a teeny tiny building. It's like maybe 3 bays.
Like I said, we're getting a little, we're doing text here, so.
So this is
yeah.
not someday you might see something big and monstrous and you want to ask all these questions, but if we get to the point where we submit the application, I think you'll take, the staff's going to look at it and they're going to go, okay. So
Well,
that's for this particular thing that we're not supposed to be talking about right now.
Right.
But again, in other things, you might encounter some larger users and someone wants to come in and do truck repair facilities or something like that, then That's
know,
when you want to really start asking those questions.
And as a town, we want to do our best to accommodate,
Correct.
big national companies like Amazon, so we know other companies know our door's open, and we'll work with them.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, this is a big thing for us, too, because it's Amazon, let's face it,
And they're all
and people are
legitimate
watching.
questions. All legitimate questions, and you should ask
Thank you.
them. And when it comes time for a site plan review, we will submit our application and outline everything we're doing and probably what we're not doing, just so we're clear.
Okay, Chris?
I thought that was a reasonable concern that Commissioner Anderson brought up, and I would have been, and I was going to say, hey, I'm in support of adding no outdoor storage or work, but I just double checked our industrial regulations, section 6.30.2, activities limited to enclosed buildings and limited outdoor storage provisions. So we already, subsection A, all business servicing and processing except for off-street parking or loading shall be conducted within completely enclosed buildings. So I think we have ourselves covered there.
In
Which
theory.
which makes sense because we also allow, right, like manufacturing, like heavy manufacturing. So I think, and I was like, how do we deal with things like that? And that makes sense to
Well,
me,
in
so-
manufacturing, you're not doing manufacturing outside.
Generally not, yeah.
But
Right.
again,
But fully enclosed.
But again,
yeah.
we're going to be able to address all those things later.
I think we're covered, yeah, so good concern, I think we're covered, luckily.
Well, you're quick over
I
there.
agree.
There's an opener for town planner. He can get, good job. Really, no.
If it's a problem, we're not going to solve it by writing
no,
it down
I
in
said an
another
opening.
place.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so can I have a motion to close the public hearing? Okay, it's been moved. Second, yes? No, we didn't,
Well,
we never did the vote.
Okay, second.
Okay.
didn't
All in
vote.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No, okay, public hearing is closed. Okay, we can move on to, seems to me the motion stands alone as it is. You know, after all, we've had all the discussion and a lot of good points brought up, but it seems to me we're covered and we can just move ahead with the motion. Go ahead, Linda.
I would like to add a second condition, no third-party work, I think it must be the day.
Third-party-
Third-party work is prohibited, and in parentheses, you cannot legally serve or repair vehicles that belong to other companies, employees, or the public.
It's already-
So it just is another layer of protection for the town and for the applicant.
All right.
So just so I'm clear, so I understand, we don't have a definition for third-party work in the regs. So how are you
All right,
defining?
filed, the public hearing's closed.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
Question, okay.
Personally, I don't think that it's needed, but
Right, it's almost like
I don't make the decision.
we're not
so.
trusting the applicant.
Well,
We're
we-
proving something and thinking we better make sure they don't do this, we better make sure they don't do that.
Well,
We need to
Frank,
be
I understand what you're
nice to
saying.
people.
I understand what you're saying, but we have had many K-7s come before us say one thing, people opening garages and things, and then turn around and do things that they said they didn't get permission to do, and it causes an issue. And I just want to protect not only the town, but the applicant, so that they understand this is just for fleet repair, and the next thing you know is, oh, I know Walter, yeah, come on in, bring your
We're not
van
dealing
in.
with Joe's mechanic shop here. This is Amazon.
But
I
still,
mean, let's,
you don't
I know
know.
we've,
Joe had his hand up.
I think the wording for fleet maintenance only covers the whole thing.
Yeah.
For any company, I mean, we're not talking about Amazon specifically. This is just a general thing. I think the wording is straightforward, short, and covers everything. They did a fantastic job. I don't think we need to add or subtract anything out of that at all. I think it's great the way it stands.
Okay, Terrence, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, reading from the motion itself. With the caveat that such motor vehicle repair is restricted to an accessory use for fleet maintenance.
Yep.
I think that covers
It says.
the whole package.
What was that again? You want to say that again?
right off the
way-
back,
the way
right
it's
off the
written.
motion.
Oh, it's right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Industrial, I
thought you were adding something.
no, no, I'm not. I'm just reading what's there.
Okay.
I think the implication is that an accessory use would be an accessory use to that on-site use, and as such, it would only be that site's fleet.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Can't be a primary use.
Yeah, I think the language is sufficient as is too. As is.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Walter?
I'd be an owner of a business for 30 years. I've always let my employees come in, and if they want to change their oil or something, I'd let them do it. I did it on my vehicles. I mean, I didn't even think this was even not allowed. It never even dawned on me, so. But I'm not there anymore, so if you want to go find my brother, be my guest.
I'm just saying that this is what the state says. It's illegal, so.
yeah, well, there you go. And they're going to have to follow state regulations because they're going to need a permit anyway, so. Mr. Chair, did you seat somebody for John?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, Laura Ray.
Okay,
I did
thank
that.
you.
Did that right after.
We both
no, no.
missed it.
In the middle.
Laura Ray Anderson.
Thank you.
That makes it clear. No, we call her Laura Ray is what we call her. I think.
Laura and Laura Ray are the two most polite things anyone's ever called me, so it's totally fine.
I feel your pain.
Okay, can I have the motion, please?
Okay, a motion to approve PH 3149ZA requesting a text amendment to allow motor vehicle garage and repair body shop in industrial I zone with the caveat that such motor vehicle repair is restricted to an accessory use for fleet maintenance only. Removal, repair, or storage of EV batteries is prohibited. Body work is prohibited. Outdoor storage is prohibited. Findings: this serves to meet the POCD guidelines of encouraging economic development in industrial zone districts and support uses that are compatible within the district. With one condition: in adopting this regulation, the Commission has considered the Plan of Conservation and Development, the POCD, and finds the amendment to be consistent with the POCD. Effective date published in newspaper on June 27, 2026. This amendment shall be effective on July 13th, 2026.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Terrence has seconded. Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Ken Helinski.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
Linda DeGrace, 4. Frank Limo.
4.
Joe Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
Okay, and Laura Anderson. 4. Okay,
Okay, motion passes.
all right, thank
Unanimous.
you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a good
You're
evening.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have old business. I don't think we have any. New business, 12A, request for permit extension 92 Main Street, PH 3049 for parking, building, and site improvements. It's okay.
I don't have that up. My computer went off. My apologies, my computer went off. And this is not working. What is wrong with this thing? There we go. I'm almost there. What number are we at? 12. Come on, where is it? Concord Court. Here we go. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay, so this is an extension request for a building permit, so the 2-year building permit, that's a requirement in our conditions of approval. This application is for the 4 second-floor single-bedroom apartments and 2 ground-floor retail spaces and improved parking lot at 92 Main Street. So this is Ronnie Salas, if you recall, and that's it used to be a little bait and tackle shop. So he's gotten approval for those uses, but he's now had 4 extensions to receive the building permit. If he gets an additional 1-year request to be approved, it will bring the extension to 5 years. So at that point, we would have to have them, he'd have to get an extension for the 5-year requirement to finish the project. So my motion proposes that you get the 1-year extension. However, the note to the applicant file is up to a 5-year extension will be required to be requested before October 27th, 2027, or the application will be null and void. This is happening with a couple of different businesses or potential businesses down in the Thompsonville area because there's interest, but nobody wants to sign on the dotted line until the train station is more of a reality. So he's having the same problem.
Yeah, Frank?
So can he go over 5 years if he comes back in 27, or is he going to be done in 27?
Well, you could get a 5-year extension.
Okay,
yeah.
but this is his 5th time getting an extension?
This
you
is
said?
the 5th time extending the
1 year.
2-year for the building permit.
Okay, so he's extended out 5 years already, or 2?
4.
4,
So
okay.
this would be the 5th year.
He still has an opportunity to come before us as long as he follows that timetable.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, can I have the motion, please?
Make a motion to approve a 1-year extension to receive a building permit. The approval, I should read the whole thing, huh? Okay. Sorry. This is make a motion for approval of PH 3049 approval application for 4 second floor single bedroom apartments, ground floor retail space and improved parking lot at 92 Main Street. Salas Brothers LLC applicant owner, map 24, lot 47, TD4 zone, approved September 27, 2022, for a 1-year extension to receive a building permit. The approval shall expire on October 27, 2027.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Could I have roll call, please?
Ken Helinski.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
Linda DeGray, 4. Frank Limo.
4.
Frank Muley.
Excuse me? Frank,
Joe.
you?
I'm sorry,
Muley.
Joe.
4.
Which one is it?
It's whatever your
I get 2
name
votes?
is. Whatever your name is.
Hey, you.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
Laura Henderson.
4.
Okay.
Okay, motion's approved unanimously. Okay, item 13, other business discussion on building coverage versus impervious coverage on non-conforming lots less than or equal to 30,000 square feet. So, go ahead, Steve.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I've prepared a report for all of you, and I'm not going to read it verbatim. I'm just going to give a summary and pull out some of the highlights. So as a part of our review of the zoning regulations, Rick did bring up a good point that with our smaller lots, when he goes out into the field, he sees that there's a lot of water issues with them because as a part of our current zoning regulations, we do not have a impervious coverage requirement for our residential districts. And so we thought as a potential solution for that is to, instead of using building coverage on our lots that are smaller than 33,000 square feet, to maybe change to all impervious coverage on lots that are smaller than 33,000 square feet. So I took a sample of properties. In my data, I had taken a previous map where I had looked at the previous zones, how big the parcels were in 5 different neighborhoods, and I selected 5 houses or 5 properties at random in each neighborhood to get a sample of 35 single-family homes, more or less. And from my sample, I saw that on average, our parcel sizes were about 17,200 square feet. And the coverage with the current regulations is on average 12%. When we include all impervious surfaces, that coverage jumps up to 20.98%, which is a little over the average. But when you take a deeper dive into the numbers, you see that only 19 out of the 35 parcels from my sample would actually remain in compliance, which is only about 54% of all of those properties. So to just change from building coverage to impervious coverage, that would create a lot of nonconformities, and that would, be more of a detriment than it would be of help. So I took a little bit of a deeper dive and I said, all right, well, what if we look at the driveways and the pools and see how much they use up in terms of impervious coverage? Driveways, there was a pretty wide range of them, which was evident from our lack of impervious coverage. And I found that they use up, on average, about 5% of all impervious coverage. And our pools, there was only 10 parcels that had pools within the sample, so take this stat with a grain of salt. And they also ranged wildly, too. But on average, so if we include pools that were outside of the regular distribution, they were closer to 6%, but if we take out those outliers, it's closer to 3%. So driveways take up about 5% of all impervious coverage, and pools take about 3% of all impervious coverage. So to try and mitigate some of these issues, if we were to switch from building coverage to impervious coverage, we could do a 30% impervious coverage for these small lots. Now, I do also want to highlight some of the potential drawbacks of implementing this kind of change in our regulations. First, I had mentioned earlier, this creates potentially a lot of nonconformities if we don't properly adjust the coverage percentage. As stated, if we don't increase the number at all, it changes the amount of parcels that would be in compliance to only 54% of potentially all of those properties that are small. And another potential drawback that I saw while I was doing these calculations is that with the current technology the town has, we would be reliant on aerial images, which aren't always the most up-to-date, and it counts on staff making judgment calls. What I find for impervious coverage, Rick might find slightly different. It also depends on the image quality. So from what we would find in the office could differ from person to person just based on who's looking at these images. And so the best way to kind of mitigate that would be to ask applicants to come up with a site plan for every single application. And for applications that would normally just be a building permit and a simple little drawing would suffice for the planning and zoning department, now all of a sudden requires an engineer, which brings up the costs on applicants for, just because we've now wanted to look at impervious coverage as to just building coverage. And so in conclusion, we've actually have a little bit of a different conclusion because Lori and I, as well as Rick, had a conversation earlier today. So maybe instead of changing building coverage to impervious coverage, we're thinking that we'll just have to look at water runoff a little bit more carefully when approving building plans that come in, and to potentially include a setback requirement for impervious surfaces. So that way, because as the regulations currently sit, you could pave the entire property and we have no regulations against that. But if we at least put in a setback requirement of maybe at least the side yards and rear yard, that can at least limit to how far that impervious coverage can go.
Okay, so what we're looking for here is what the thoughts of the commission are on this particular item. Do we want to go with all the impervious coverage requirement? Do we want to go with the building size requirement, square footage requirement, percentage of the lot size, and so on? Because there are several, I think as Steve mentioned, there are several houses in that category that are in violation at this point. And we need to fix that somehow or bring them into compliance. Okay, it may be a big burden to bring them into compliance. Rick, you had something?
What?
This is so you have an understanding. When this came up basically because of an individual property that's pretty much at its maximum for lot coverage, but the individual wants to add on over the 20%. And I think it was I who told them, you can't go over your lot coverage. So that's kind of how it came up with the decks, because one of the issues was, well, why do we take attached decks into account for lot coverage on properties? But in our regulations under accessory buildings or use, it talks about structures which provide access to the principal building, including but not limited to decks, landings, porches, et cetera, are considered part of the principal structure and shall not be considered accessory structures. So that's the reason why we take the decks that are attached to homes into consideration for lot coverage. Now, my view on this kind of came into play when we were talking about or discussing the possibility of removing a requirement for basements. And so then I look at it taking another step. Well, if you're going to take the requirement away and someone builds a house with a slab, the natural progression is that they're going to want to have some sort of storage in the yard. And if you now remove a deck from what we consider for storage, that allows that individual to put up multiple buildings or accessory buildings on the lot, which in turn also contributes to stormwater runoff on neighboring properties. Now, there's some properties in town, you don't need a building permit to lay a patio in town. It would have to be 3 feet or higher for the building department to get into play here. So there are some properties in town where half to 3/4 of their backyard is covered in cement, which creates a stormwater runoff for the neighboring properties. And there's numerous properties that have driveways that have paved right up to the property line, which then we get complaints because there's water running off into the neighboring property. Now, building doesn't do the stormwater runoff complaints anymore. It comes in through zoning now. Not now, but we both did it. But there is a clause or a section of the regulations regarding stormwater runoff that we can address if there's a problem. It's just that if you change one thing, or if you take into consideration changing one section of the regulations for basements, that could contribute to lot coverage in another way. And I just kind of look at things from the standpoint of going out on complaints. And I see it more often than the regular staff does. So it's not a simple question. And the idea of taking into consideration a setback and not allowing any impervious to go into the setback would probably assist in future problems. Right now, we just consider structures that can't go into the setbacks. But if you take into consideration impervious, that would probably, again, help the situation with the stormwater issues, because they're becoming more prevalent.
Okay. Go ahead.
We had given you a sample of what we were proposing, and everybody seemed to be okay with it, and then Rick got a little bit more involved in the conversation, and that's where he brought up the impervious coverage. So Stephen has done a statistical survey, small, but it's still showing that we would be creating a lot more nonconformities, and that's not a goal by any means. So we're proposing to keep the definition changes regarding coverage with the accessory building and use coverage, lot coverage, and building, as we had discussed it in the past. So the decks that are adjacent to a building, only if they're impervious will we count them as coverage. So we added the word impervious decks in there. And then also everybody had agreed that swimming pools shall not be counted as building coverage. And that included both above and in ground. So coverage, we changed the area of an above-ground swimming pool shall not be counted in determining building coverage for a lot. Instead, we just said the area of a swimming pool. So that, and we could clarify, just to make sure everybody knows that either above or below ground swimming pool would not be counted. Those were the only changes that we proposed, and then what we will do is take more account of, like, when we issue a shed, deck, or whatever permit for accessory structures, we will take more account as to what's out there in reality as far as coverage, with impervious coverage, and look to see what the grading is and things of that nature. And we kind of do that now, but we'll kind of take note of it and really look at that a little bit more. And, say, well, you could put this in, but you're going to have to grade around this in a different direction, otherwise you're going to be directing water off-site. And then I think as we're doing our regulation update, we could consider having a setback for impervious coverage, pavement or whatever. And we've all agreed, it's like, if somebody wanted to come in right now and pave or asphalt their entire lot, they can. With
They agreed, and I don't have to vote anything.
You still have to
I mean,
seal it. You
it's
still have
not
to seal it,
advised
though.
because you're probably going to cause water issues on your own site, let alone somebody else's. But I'm just, based on the current regulation, they theoretically could do that. So I think that we should consider some sort of a setback for, like, the driveway or other impervious coverages.
Okay. That's good input. Anybody have any comments or questions? Are we okay with this language here in the definition changes? I mean, as a kind of a consensus, that's something we'd like to go with? Yes, Joe?
So, Mike, so we don't count driveways as of right now,
No,
anywhere,
we don't.
any residential?
Right.
Okay,
Oh,
Which is pretty much the norm in most towns.
right.
The only sections where impervious is taken into account is the Thompsonville section,
Yeah, that's true.
Thompsonville districts.
But that's not really
Impervious is-
residential.
Well, you have residential homes there
Yeah,
that are.
yeah, it's mixed use.
Yeah, so
rather
that's
than
the area
residential.
that, if it's residential, the impervious still comes into play, but it's part of it.
Well, I know if you count my driveway all of a sudden, I'll be way over.
I agree.
I mean, when I built my garage, I maxed
Don't
out
tell
what
us.
the building department told me I could do. But if you count my driveway, and that'd probably go for everybody in that neighborhood, they'd be way over. I mean,
like-
probably over 30%.
Looks like a law to me.
So I'm just, if we're not counting them now, and I understand the impervious part and water and stuff, but I don't think we should start counting them. Maybe set up some setbacks for new construction or something.
That's the point. We're not going back on
Yeah,
anybody else. We're
because,
just
I mean,
saying
like-
that in the future, we should
Yeah.
probably have some sort of a setback for
Yeah.
impervious coverage on the
Because like every
lots.
driveway in my section of Townsville, the driveway is right on this property line.
Right,
like,
but
within
again,
inches.
this would not
Yeah.
be for Thompsonville, because that's kind of its own entity.
Yeah. I'm all for going up to 30%, though.
It's probably not enough.
Well, if you don't count my driveway, it is.
Your grandfather.
But, what else? Yeah, I think in our discussions about what's considered impervious was, it basically, if it ended up with a roof on it, it was counted as impervious, whether it's a patio or a deck or whatever. If it's got a roof on it, it's counted as impervious coverage.
Well, that is correct, but what was also being included were the decks and landings and porches that,
Yeah,
That-
we had talked about that, and if it didn't have a roof on it, rain goes through it.
well, it could be a concrete paver deck or patio. But if it's adjacent to the house, the way this is worded, if it's adjacent
Part
to
of our
the
discussion
principal
was like,
building.
if it was a U-shaped house and there was a deck in the back that
Yep.
went from end to end,
Yep.
that was being counted as coverage, and we decided it wouldn't
Right.
be because it doesn't have a roof on it. It's exposed to the elements and water goes through it.
Yep.
That was our big discussion we had, and John
Yep.
agreed with that too, and we had several discussions about it. So I'm kind of thinking we should stick with, I mean, as far as a concrete slab or something, I'm not sure how you would,
So now with in-ground pools as they exist, we take into consideration the 4-foot or 3-foot sidewalk around the in-ground pool as part of lot coverage because it's part of the structure. And since the in-ground pools are considered lot coverage under the regulations, that structure attached to it is also considered lot coverage. And in some of the cases were that somebody put an in-ground pool and the proposal comes in to extend the patio or the slab. And like I said, half or 3/4 of the backyard is covered in cement, and that's
Yeah.
what creates the problem.
I would think we would have to come up with some separate verbiage about solid concrete patios and walkways for like around pools and stuff. The pool itself, we're not gonna count anymore. But if somebody's gonna pour a slab for a patio and stuff, I think you got a good point there. That's definitely impervious coverage. What if they use pavers?
And some have been.
Different story.
Sometimes when it gets into the lot coverage issue, I've suggested to them to use pavers.
Yeah.
And they've gotten around it that way, but it's considered, if it's solid, then it's considered the impervious, we take it into consideration.
I think we would have to add something in there to be specific about that. Especially if we're not gonna count the pool anymore. But if they surround it with 5 feet of concrete all the way around it, I mean, that's a lot of coverage, so. Unless they're gonna specifically say they're gonna be using pavers, and then they get around that. But we should probably add some kind of verbiage in there about slabs. And Barry, what does not having a foundation have to do with coverage?
So when I look at, I look at things a little bit different, just from experience going out there. So I'm thinking, if you wind up allowing a slab for construction of a home, which I don't have a problem with, but now the likelihood that that property owner is going to want storage space with a shed or whatever the case may be, and now you reduce or you eliminate a deck that may be on the house, which we normally would take into consideration for lot coverage, that gives them more opportunity to add larger or bigger or more structures, sheds or garages, whatever the case may be. And in turn, if you have more lot coverage, that's what contributes to the stormwater. Ultimately, it gets down to the stormwater issues that we've had and the complaints that we've had for water running off other properties onto neighboring properties.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a guarantee that somebody, just because they're living on a slab, is going to get a shed, but I kind of look at those potential issues because a lot of times they come about. We make a change and we don't think about how is that going to affect A, B, and C after we've made the change, and ultimately things happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's been said before, I mean, regardless if somebody has a slab or a basement, people like stuff. And they're always needing more space for their stuff, so. But as far as going to 30%, I'd be in favor of that, but I think we need to look at the concrete problem.
Okay, Frank, did you have something?
Yeah, so are you going to implement this now to any existing parcels? Because I think you said you don't want to make any more non-conforming, which that was one of my issues, but you already covered that.
So this wouldn't go into effect right away, of course, because right now this is just an informal discussion.
Right.
But if something like this was to get implemented, all those parcels that would be currently over the percentage, they would be essentially grandfathered in.
Right. But they would become legal non-conforming lots.
That is correct.
And we were always working to try to get rid of legal non-conforming lots.
That is also correct.
Right, so I think,
All of these are already legal non-conforming lots because they're less than 33,000 square feet in an R33 zone.
okay. And so what I don't want to see is us restrict somebody from using their property. Or let's go to Enfield and buy a house. So wait a minute, if you buy that house, you can't put a pool in. You can't put it, that's just not right. I mean, if we're going to do anything large, it should be under new building permits or new regulations. I don't want to see anybody get affected that has the property now.
Well, that's...
Or wants to sell it, and, okay, let's buy, oh, what a beautiful house. Well, wait a minute, you can't put up a shed, you can't put in a pool. I don't want to see that.
That's kind of what I'm saying, is that if we just switched from building to impervious coverage without increasing the percentage, that's where that 54% would come into play where only 54% of those current homes would be even more legal nonconforming. But increasing it to 30% would help mitigate some of that damage. Wouldn't get rid of all of the legal nonconformities, but it would mitigate some of it. And also, just as stated earlier, with the current technology that staff has, it's not super easy for us, and it's not 100% clear on what we can see as impervious versus pervious, and it would come down to judgment calls based on what we can find on our technology.
Yeah, I just don't want to see us open up Pandora's box here or restrict people from using their property that they already own.
So I think that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying, I mean, I understand the roof thing. Yes, if it has a roof, it's automatically impervious. But the problem is this says that decks, landings, and porches are considered part of a principal structure if it's next to it. And that means even if it's a wooden deck with slats, we're just saying change that to impervious decks, landings, porches, and then it could be considered part of the structure. We're trying to make this easier for people, actually. And then you all agreed that you would take swimming pools out as building coverage.
In ground and above.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't think that we need to worry about the roof being a structure because that's pretty much automatic by
Yeah.
definition. This is just that these decks and landings and porches that are adjacent and appearing to be part of the principal structure, if they have water flowing through them, they shouldn't be counted.
Well, just,
So,
again, like I was
I
saying
mean-
before, we want to be courteous and as friendly as we can to business.
Yeah.
And we should be the same, more to homeowners. I don't want to put any restrictions on them or
Yeah,
burden
that-
anybody. If it's new development, you want to make something new, that's completely different. We can debate that. But to fool around with anybody's lot or anybody's land, I'm not for that.
But
Thank you.
I agree with you. I don't think that we should go with the impervious coverage. I think we should stick with what we have, and with
Right.
these minor modifications
If it's
to
not
those
broke, don't fix it.
sections, it should fix some of the issues.
Okay.
And I just want to say I agree with Lori's statement on that. The only reason why we're mentioning the 30% impervious coverage at all is because it was just something that came up in a staff discussion, and this was our findings, and we just wanted to share it with all of you and get some of your thoughts on it all.
Well, one of the things you said is the GPS or the systems aren't accurate. So right there, we can't, you did a whole study with
Yeah.
cameras that aren't accurate, so.
Well, the GIS, sometimes the aerial is very clear, sometimes it's not. And
Right, so
just whoever is manipulating the device to measure it could alter.
Well, we can't have sometimes, it's got to
Yeah.
always be correct.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
The GIS is inherently inaccurate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I got my answers. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
anybody
Appreciate
else? Yeah, Laura Ray?
Well, a couple questions. How many houses in Enfield are we talking, or how many properties are in this scope in general?
70%?
I would say probably roughly 70-ish%.
Okay.
Because, and you may not have been here when I did the original study on
Probably
Enfield's
not, yeah,
housing.
sorry.
No, that's okay. But the vast majority of Enfield subdivisions were created, these subdivision requirements only had a minimum lot requirement of 12,500 square feet, which that's well below the 33,000 square feet that is required at minimum across the board.
Yeah.
So a vast majority of Enfield's housing is within that less than 33,000 square feet.
And on the water runoff issue, do we have any? I mean, I know you guys get complaints, as I imagine. I've gotten many in my time at the state too. Do you guys have any statistics about how many calls come into your office about that, or do we know like how much in insurance claims some of that costs residents? Do we know what that costs us in road repairs, or is there any way to sort of quantify how much of an issue that is? Only because if we were to change something that might feel burdensome to our residents, it might be helpful to share some of that information. I would just be interested in it, even if we add like a ballpark.
It would mostly go into Rick, so.
Yeah, for last year, I think there were 7 complaints of water into the roadways, sump pumps of that sort, maybe even more than that. But and then the town highway winds up because of contacting me because water goes in and out into the road, freezes, thaws, freezes, cracks the roadway. So 7, maybe 8 of those, and probably 11 or 12 of storm water running from one property onto another. But that's just in the past year. I mean, I've probably had, I don't know, 60 complaints, maybe more than that, for stormwater runoff since I've been here. So,
Which has been how many years?
11, too long?
So, that's not a lot. I mean, it could considerably, I'm sorry. It could certainly be way more than that if you start thinking about what people are putting on their properties and that they could theoretically, cover their property with impervious surfaces. So for 60 over 11 years is not a whole lot considering the amount of properties we have that are residential units.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Go ahead, Joe.
Is there, this is just curiosity, is there a reason why we used the zoning map from 2005 and not something more current?
Because
Well,
that's the most current.
Are you kidding?
Well, no, the reason why I used the 2005 zoning map is just because that was the same map I did when I did the initial housing study for Enfield. I already had a bunch of different parcel sizes labeled out with like roughly how large they were in certain neighborhoods, and it just made it easier for me to pinpoint what neighborhoods to target when I was pulling out my random sample.
Okay.
So it was just a methodology, make the process a little bit faster kind of thing.
Okay. The other question, you mentioned this near map thing. Do we have access to that with the town?
I do not believe you as the commissioners have access to that. That's primarily something that staff has access to.
It is a paid service. I'm just curious because
Correct, it is a paid service.
looked at it briefly before you get to the point where you have to sign up for it, and it looks much better than our GIS map.
Oh, it is much better than our GIS. The near map gets us aerial images at least every year, sometimes twice a year.
Yeah.
But again, even with near map, those aerial images are only so accurate. Our GIS only has up to 2023 in its aerial imagery. And even with using near map, as stated before, the aerial images aren't always 100% clear. And even with near map, property lines still aren't 100% accurate. So that's where there could be some fudging when making calculations.
Okay. Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, it sounds like we've got some more studying to do.
Are you saying that you're not happy with the wording as it is?
Now, I was talking about the context of further work to do, on the whole system as far as impervious and all that kind of stuff, versus the size of the properties. It sounds like we still are going to have a large problem with, the lesser lot sizes with coverage, regardless. And we'll solve some of it by doing this. But we solve the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think that if you were to look at all of the properties in this town, and I do think, I want to say it's about 70% of them are under the 33,000
Yep.
and way under.
Okay.
And we really don't have a big problem, but there could be a problem. So that's why we're just trying to maybe minimize the potential.
Okay.
But what this is doing is just kind of allowing pervious surfaces not being counted as.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
coverage.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, there's a whole list of things.
Well,
that
just I
we
started
could be
thinking about all
studying.
these other things that would
Yeah.
apply to this discussion, and
So we're just wondering where we stand with the wording as is, with the understanding that we might consider in the future setbacks for impervious coverage surfaces, and staff will review the drainage for
I think
every
we
time
had
we approve
consensus on that,
something.
right? We want to,
Yeah, for clarity, I think it's a great idea. I was honestly just looking for a little more background and context, but that's probably just because I'm newer here.
okay.
I'd be for increasing the coverage percentage, though. I think that would help. But the wording here is good, but you said, adding something about new construction, about driveways, But I
That would be in the
think,
future.
I think upping it to 30% would be useful for everybody, especially homeowners and stuff.
So you're saying up the building
The
coverage,
wording you got
not
here,
the-
yeah, building coverage,
the
but I
building
think
coverage.
we should seriously consider going over, making it 30%. That'd be my only concern.
Building coverage?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Frank,
to the
go
chair.
ahead. Frank.
I'm not sure, but before we implement this or vote on it, do you think it's worthy of a public hearing?
This is just discussion.
Well, this is
Right.
just
No,
a
right.
discussion.
When we get to where we're going to do this.
This is a discussion, so we could
I got it.
send.
When we get to implementing or voting.
It would have to
We'd have
be.
to have a public
We'd
hearing
have to do
first.
that
Okay.
to make it
Because
part
I
of the
think I'd like to hear
regulation.
from the
Yeah,
public.
yeah.
It just
Yeah.
affects so many people.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay? We good? Okay, let's move it along. All right, next item
So
is,
I guess I'm still not clear as to where we stand. Do you want us to send
okay,
this
the wording
across?
is good. right?
Pardon?
The wording is good.
The wording is good.
Okay, so then maybe the only thing is, do we want to go with the 30%?
I think we'd have to do a little bit
Yes.
more of a study, maybe.
I mean, I could do a second study on, the coverage percentages for building coverage, look at it from the building perspective, so that way we can at least get that perspective as well before we do any potential increasing on the coverage.
Okay,
So you want more study then?
okay.
Yes?
Yeah, Rick says,
So just so, I checked a few of the towns around, just so you have an idea. Windsor Locks does 20% for lot coverage. It, depending on the size, goes up to 33,750 square feet for a minimum lot size. It goes up to 25%. East Windsor does buildings at 15% across the board, but they also take into consideration impervious at 25%.
okay,
Bloomfield, for an R30, 30,000 square feet for a lot area, has 20% lot coverage, 40,000 square foot R40, and their town is 25%, and an 80 is 15%. And of course, and those relate to ours, R33, regular R33 is 20%. A rear lot would be 15%. R44 is 15%, but it's a larger 44,000 square feet. R88, again, is 10%, and multifamily, 30%, but it takes in impervious at 66%, just to give you an idea of
okay. So
what's around.
it kind of varies a lot, but people are going higher.
Yeah, obviously, each lot is different. I mean, you'll get a lot that's 7,000 square feet in size, it gets 20% for lot coverage.
Yeah.
And then you'll get one that's 33,000. Obviously, they have a lot more area to cover, and it gives them more leeway. And that's the problem. There's just such a large variance of different properties in town that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't with the 20%.
Okay, I kind of like Steve's idea of the structural coverage, covering that, looking at that, and comparing it to the impervious. Right? I think that's what you were suggesting, correct?
I mean, that's what it sounded like coming from all of you. I have no problem doing another study, seeing what 30% may potentially look like, and see what potential issues we may have with that, what potential benefits we could have from that. So if you want me to do that, I have no problem.
Okay. Sounds good?
Just
Yeah,
one
Frank,
thing,
go ahead.
for study purposes, if you're going to bring any more information, I was interested in what Rick was saying, but I wonder what Summers and Suffield does instead of the towns you mentioned, because we do have some big lots out east that our comparison to Summers and Suffield. If you,
Well, that's why they have less % coverage.
because the lots are bigger.
Because
But I
the
just
lots
don't
are
know.
bigger.
Yeah, I just don't know off the top of my head
So,
what they
I
do.
mean, I don't think that we've really, I mean, we could certainly do that, but I think that the issue is these smaller postage size lots.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what we're trying to
how
fix.
far do we want to go with those? Because the bigger lots, it's pretty much a.
No, I just got interested when Rick was talking about the other
Yeah.
towns. I was just considering east and west of us.
Yeah, but like, I know you had the.
Okay,
All right, we'll do some sort of study for you.
okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just
Go ahead.
a quick question to staff? Are there any like impact fees or anything that we assess outside of planning and zoning?
I'm
but from
sorry,
the-
could you repeat that?
From the building side, are there any impact fees or anything based on impervious coverage?
Impact fees, is that what you said?
Yeah, because like it would potentially impact like stormwater. So are there any?
We
Okay.
don't have any impact fees. I'm not sure if we're allowed to. I'd have to double check.
I was just curious because
don't-
it's
I know
something
in
that
other
would
states that,
that could influence people's desire to increase impervious coverage if there was an added cost to it.
I don't believe that we're allowed to do
Okay.
that based on the statutes, but we could look into it.
No, I was thank you. It's okay.
I don't know of any towns, that, at least any ones that I've worked in.
I was wondering
that-
if maybe
that had
perhaps
them.
something like that would would
Yeah.
discourage people from
You're
paving
talking
over
about
the
an
road.
added tax is what you're talking
I'm not. I'm asking.
That's what it would be.
I'm not suggesting anything be added. I'm asking if it exists.
I'm just saying, but if you wanted to go down that road, that'd be an added tax to the
That's not
taxpayer.
what. That's not the. ro-
I know
that's not the
you
road.
don't want to go with that, but
Yeah.
that's what it would end up being.
No, understood.
Okay. You guys okay?
We're good.
Okay. All right. Item 14, Commissioners' Correspondence. Any Commissioners' Correspondence? Linda?
I just have 2 questions for staff. That's quick questions. Has the additional ZEO position been posted out, and have we gotten anybody to help? To say yes?
We have been advertising for it. To date, we have gotten 3 applicants.
Yay.
They like to have 3 or 4 to even have an interview, and some of them may or may not be even qualified to interview. So they did extend it out 1 more week, I think.
Okay.
May have been 2, but definitely
Yay.
one week.
Yeah,
And
no problem.
That's a good thing. All right.
there is, I haven't read through all the resumes
Okay.
yet, but
All right.
we're
Well,
working on it.
At least we've got some possible applicants. And then my second question is, we're going on 7.5 years. When are we going to have our first public hearing on our regulations? What we can have a public hearing
We're
on?
working on the revising Chapter 6 right now,
Okay.
and we're not far from Chapter 7, the industrial,
Okay.
from getting that done.
All right.
So
That's all. Thanks.
Just happy to be back. Some good ideas from our conference in Michigan, and sorry, I totally screwed up the date I was going to zoom into last time. And then just exciting news from your friends at the state. Hopefully, people are seeing people slow down on your highways. Your work zone speed cameras are up and running on your highways. So hopefully, you're slowing down. Not that any of you would ever go over the speed limit.
Walter?
So mentioning the state, I did, if anyone ever notices, in Skidco, going east on 190, when you get to Taylor Road, there's going to be a new left turn lane. And that was my doing. You're welcome.
What about the light by the high school?
No, that's not going to try. I'm worried about my neighborhood now. Let me worry about my neighborhood first. I attempted to get them to do the same thing going west at Broadbrook Road, but they claim the road's too narrow. But I'm still trying to twist some arms. So, because the only reason I'm doing it because they just repaved, and And when I did ask for it some years ago, they said, well, no, we don't want to grind up the lines and stuff. I said, well, I've been back and forth for 4 months with them ever since they said they were going to pave, so. But I did see little pencil marks that they were going to add that turn.
I saw that yesterday,
Well, yeah, going, like I said, going east on Taylor, they said yes, but the other way, they said no. I sent some pictures just Monday, so I'm, like I said, I'm still twisting arms. So if you're watching, make it so.
Good job.
All right. Anyone else for correspondence? Okay. Moving on, Director of Planning report.
So we have some candidates for the CEO position. To my thunder.
Sorry.
So, but it is extended. But I think we'll probably just see where it lands next week. Yesterday afternoon, Aaron Markovich and I joined a number of people from CROG and Marie Pisner and John Santinella, and also DOT for a walk audit from Bright Meadow Boulevard along Route 5 to the state line. And if anybody's never walked it, go do that. It's amazing what you see that you don't see. So did you know that on the west side, there are beautiful, gorgeous trees? And on the east side, there's nothing. The sidewalks are abominable. Some of them are actually like truly dangerous. So this is all to look at a beautification plan and maybe some bike ped lanes and traffic calming, and we're going to actually try to make that area into a TIF district, so there'd be some funding available for that.
Good.
So it was really eye-opening just to walk that little bit.
Yeah.
And it's like some of the structures there are adorable, you know, and maybe some facade changes, maybe some use changes. It could be a nice welcoming little corridor there. I have been trying to wrap my head around Public Act 25-01. There's a lot of towns that are not going to meet the July 1st deadline for all the changes, including us. But what I would like to do is in the upcoming, we've only got 2 more meetings left, so I'm going to try to come up with some summaries. And I'll just tell you, so the bill is 107 pages. The summary from CROG and other Council of Governments is 80 pages.
Well,
So that just gives you a quick clue. Excuse me. And I'm literally like going through pages and saying, okay, this we have to do now, this we have to do later. This is, so it's a big task. So, but some of the things for us to work on, we're gonna need your input as to what direction you want us to go in. So I'm gonna try to do that as best I can for one of the next meetings. And things like required middle housing, ADUs, so.
Isn't it in there that if we opted out of ADUs, we don't
I
have to
believe,
do
and
that?
Stephen and I were looking at it, we both believe that we're good, but I think that we really should consider the use as something that could be permitted in certain areas.
And I think you're gonna have a lot of town people
I
push back.
understand that,
So.
but.
But I do know that the council voted under our recommendation not to do the ADUs, and so that we're not required, but any town that did opt out
Yeah.
at that time has to do them, so.
Correct.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I understood that piece.
So, and I need
Because
to
some of the other stuff. I
gather
have no
more
idea.
information as to whether or not we truly are exempt and continue to be exempt. I don't know what sort of pressure this is going to give us.
Yes. It was
So-
very convoluted, and I had to stop and say, what did I just read? And then reread it and reread it.
Thank you.
And reread it. So so I'm not the only one who didn't.
Joe's been saying that all along.
Rick just said, nope.
The lawyers are going to argue with the lawyers.
Yeah,
yeah.
And we have no idea what it says.
Yeah,
Right,
so,
nobody
so
knows.
it's crazy. So, I mean, we may be exempt from ADUs, but when we opted out, it was because it was basically being pushed down our throats to just like be everywhere, especially in Thompsonville, where it could be an issue, especially with the infrastructure. We discussed it and said, we're going to opt out now, but we're going to consider allowing them in the future. So we don't, I'm not saying we have to, but I want to know whether or not you have any interest in doing it. And that's just one of many things that I need to.
Okay.
We
No.
need to get guidance from you so we can prepare it, so you could review
No,
it.
I'm just, because
I know.
I know how horrible that is.
I was here. I know.
Awful. So, and I watched the meeting. That's how sick I am. As I sat and watched it,
Yeah.
on television, the state arguing it out, and I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. So,
The ADUs?
That whole book.
Oh, the whole book. I wish I could, but
This might be me not reading my email, and I know it's still long, but can we see the CROG summary?
I have it right here.
Oh, because I was like, if we, yeah.
It's
Oh,
80
you think that's
pages.
going to be easier?
Well, I don't know, it's like 20 less pages or something, right?
Is it
Yes,
online?
that's
This?
true.
Yeah.
Is it online?
Summary.
Yes.
tells-
Yeah,
It's online.
it's online somewhere, that'd be cool. I just, sorry, okay.
I'm
Yes,
both.
it,
If you go to
Great.
the CROG site, it's probably on.
Because like I've seen the legislature is just
Yeah.
slightly more incoherent, I would imagine, so.
it's kind of
just-
interesting.
Yeah, I just thought it would be
The CROG
nicer.
summary
I've read the
references
law,
you back to the Public
but
Act,
it's not. Yeah.
and you still have to read through it.
Yeah, the law I've read, I just am interested to see what,
Yeah. I could share
to be
all
fair,
of this
though,
with
the-
you. I could send it all to you if you'd like it.
The act does
make my life
contain
easier,
a
I'd love
lot
that.
more than just zoning.
Yeah, there
Oh,
was.
The act
yes.
contains a lot more than zoning, so there's also a lot of things for town council to consider.
Right.
And regional planning
Right.
commission,
Yeah.
regional,
Yep.
yeah.
But I
So
mean, when
from
you
our
read it,
scope, it's not 120 pages worth of.
Right, but you're reading it, and it's not an easy read. And you just have to stop and go, what did I just read? And then, how did this affect me in planning and zoning? And then you go, oh, no, that does, all right, move on.
Oh, exactly,
But
yeah.
it was a difficult, it could have been honed down, I think, and made much easier.
And hopefully in the summary, they differentiate we'll see.
Who knows?
But in the presentations to the Regional Planning Commission, they did focus on, hey, these are the sections that
Yeah.
will impact you as zoning commissions. Not that it was like, hey, ignore the other sections, but there's sections that we care about more.
Right.
We're not so much about the points for affordable housing and things like that.
Okay, Walter had.
Didn't we have a seminar about stay in your own lane? Should somebody send that to the state and to the feds? Stay in your lane, we'll take care of this one, you guys take care of the other ones?
Frank first, and then,
To the ADUs, I was sitting on the commission at the time, and I know 100% to the T, we followed this process that was laid out by the state
yeah,
relative to opting out. So the town of Enfield officially opt out of it at that time, following the state statute then. So I don't know if that supersedes that, but I know we did it correctly, and the town council took action as well.
okay.
Again, I
Thank you.
don't believe so, but I need to hear it officially from an attorney or something like that, so.
Okay, Steve, you had something? Or-
Yes, I just want to get back to Commissioner Anderson's question about if the CROG summary is available publicly. It is available publicly. You can just go to Google, type in CT CROG summary housing bill. It's the first link that pops up. You click on it, and then it takes you to their
Thank you.
page. And then there's a link on there that says CT COG summary. You click on that, and there you go. So it is
Thank
available
you.
online.
I will Google it, Stephen, thank you.
I was just throwing that out there.
I will send all of the links.
Never ask a question again.
I can send all of the links that I have, and there's a lot to
Okay.
you,
That'd be
of
good.
different
If
summaries.
you want a good night's sleep, go ahead, read it.
I mean, I spent probably about, I don't know, 5 hours going through the bill, just trying to put in the numbers, because you couldn't figure out where you were in the bill, because the numbering system was like not really obvious. I mean, just doing that was tedious.
Yes, go ahead,
Do
Frank.
we still have Don Poland on retainer?
He is,
Doesn't he understand that yet?
he's working on it.
There's our
Georgie's
perfect guy
working
right
on
there.
it.
Have him
Georgie-
do a summary for us, and we're good,
Yeah, well,
right? He's still on contract.
He's working on it.
right,
We're all working on it.
we're all working on it.
Okay, anything
you.
else, Lori? You got,
I think that's it.
okay. Let's see. Authorization for
Yes.
administrative approvals? None, right?
Not
Not this evening. Applications to be received, we have one, I believe. SPR 1968.
So we actually have 3 to be received tonight. So first one is SPR 1968, 98 Elm Street, application for a cafe and bakery restaurant, Elm Street Enfield LLC, owner Dora Restaurant Group, applicant map 43, lot 27 BR zone. And then the 2 others that came in is SPR 1969, 188 Moody Road, application for admin approval for an addition to approval of SPR 1955, Triana Realty Corporation, owner Martin Brower, applicant, map 100, lot 12, I-1 zone, and PH 3151, 64 Paloma Drive, application for additional parking lot in reconstruction of previous parking lot. Gale Toyota applicant, Michael Green owner, map 56, lot 18, BR zone.
Okay. Yes, Walter.
I just remembered something. Do we know what's going on with the old Noah Webster School? I think the building doesn't have any windows left in it.
The one on
Brainerd Road.
Road, yeah. Past St. Martha's Church.
Yeah. I think all the windows are missing.
There's a bunch of construction material and stuff that I believe it's the water company is using it as a staging area.
That's correct. The
The
school
building-
itself, they're remediating. There's no building permit at this time. I think the building department's checking into what's actually going on there, but they've been removing materials from inside the school for, I want to say, the past 3 months.
Okay.
Have a question, Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
On 1968, that's the cannabis building, obviously. So there's been a few restaurants there before. Why are they, do they have to come for a full-blown?
Correct. So this is an admin approval application, and that's because they're proposing a outdoor seating area.
Oh, so they come in just for the seating area?
Yes, but, and you'll see it in my report when it comes in, it's an admin approval because of a state statute, so.
Okay. So it's going to be an admin approval for the whole thing?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I thought it should be. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, opportunities, unresolved issues. Executive session, none.
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in,
We're all done.
all in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Okay.